These days, we're all walking around living in our own world. We do so much so that we may often see things happening on the streets which we know are bad, yet we just let it pass by without really doing anything. We see someone getting harassed and we don't speak up. We see a place get robbed and we just watch the crime happen in front of us. We're supposed to be innately social creatures, but why do we just stand by and watch our fellow man and woman? This is what is known as the bystander effect, and it's exactly what we'll talk about in this video. But before I do so, make sure to like this video to spread this message around, and subscribe to this channel so I can continue to feed you nuggets of gold to boost brain and behavior. So first we have to look at the murder of Kitty Genovese. The bystander effect is a social psychological phenomenon where people are less likely to offer assistance in emergency situations, especially when others are present. The effect has been studied in a variety of social situations, from emergencies, crimes, and medical crises. One of the most well-known tragic incidents that kick-started the exploration into this effect was the murder of Kitty Genovese in 1964. A young woman, formerly known as Catherine Susan Genovese, walked in the streets of New York late at night, and it was there she was sexually violated, beaten, and killed. What made this case particularly horrifying was that it was not as if she hadn't called for help. In fact, she had desperately cried out for help, calling out to anyone for assistance for over half an hour. Yup, you heard that right. For more than 30 long minutes, nearby residents heard this poor woman's screams and pleas, yet not a single one of the 37 witnesses reached out to the police or did anything about it. Literally, no one came to her aid, even though people noted of hearing, perhaps even seeing, evidence of her brutal murder. So the story of Kitty spread throughout the nation the next day, and people wondered and outraged at how this could happen. Was humanity truly becoming so dehumanized that we are now just letting blatant murder happen in front of our eyes? Or was there something deeper to this? It's this very wonderment that initiated social psychologists Bibb Latané and John Darley to explore further into why we do nothing in a state of social emergency. And so in one of their experiments to explore this social behavior, and the first to explore the bystander effect, the two researchers got a group of college student participants to sit in a room and talk with other peers. Each participant stayed in a room, got a set of headphones, mic, and a microphone, and were instructed to stay in the room and simply converse with another through an intercom. Latané and Darley divided the participants into three key groups. One group of participants talked one-on-one with another person, a second group talked with two other people, and the third person talked in a group of 5 people. Then, midway in the conversation, a person in the intercom, an actor in the experiment, began to act as if they were having a seizure, asking for help. Based on the results, they found that when participants believed they were the only one to help, 85% left the room in search for assistance. When participants believed there were other 2 bystanders to help, only 64% left the room to search for assistance. And finally, when participants believed there were a larger group of people to help, those who spoke with a group of 5 people, only 31% sought for help. Beyond this experiment, Latané and Darley did several more studies looking at the bystander effect in action in different contexts, from seeing how anonymity played a role to whether someone would help and more. So through the decades of research, it's clear that the bystander effect is real. So then why does this exactly happen? Well, for one, there's a diffusion of responsibility. The key belief of this theory is that there's a diffusion of responsibility when we are in the presence of others. What this means is that when we think or are in the presence of others, we assume or spread out our own responsibility to help onto others. This action makes us feel less personally responsible for the situation, as we assume that someone else would most likely do it. And since we're all sort of putting off our responsibility to somebody else, what ends up happening is an inevitable inaction by everybody. And then there's pluralistic ignorance. There's the idea where we mistakenly believe that others may not hold the same opinion, belief, or perception as we do. This misperception leads to a collective hesitance to act, as we're all just looking at others for cues on how to respond or react. Even if we are thinking the same thing, the belief others may be thinking differently is what results in everyone waiting for someone else to act, and thus, no one doing anything at all. This is more common than you think. It happens every day in our lives. For example, you might think that a certain class is extremely difficult and you are the only person struggling in that class. But in reality, the majority of the students are struggling as well. Or perhaps you might be thinking that you're the only unhappy one at a given job, believing that management is not that great. But in fact, the rest of the employees are all thinking the same thing. So the third explanation to the bystander effect is evaluation apprehension. The The theory of evaluation apprehension suggests that we are all concerned about how our actions will be evaluated by others. We all go through this some point in our lives or throughout most of our lives, a sort of social anxiety of being negatively judged or evaluated. As such, we remain reluctant to speak up in class, participate in meetings, or try new things. Whether it's the fear of failure, a social desirability bias playing its effect, or simply the need to perform with perfection, when it comes to the presence of a group, we hesitate to take action because we fear potential harassment or embarrassment, or just some sort of negative judgment. And then there's social conformity and imitation. As innately social creatures, since childhood, we are raised to observe and conform to others around us. There is a desire to follow the group expectation, and as such, we may not want to deviate from the perceived group consensus. Social imitation can be conscious or unconscious. This is highly evident from the social experiment done in which a group of individuals are facing the back of an elevator staring at nothing. A new rider then enters, takes note of the direction everyone else is facing, and follows suit. And there's a fear of consequences as well. Depending on the emergency, we think that by helping in this situation, we may end up getting hurt ourselves or have to face some unforeseen consequences thereafter. For example, in China, this bystander effect behavior was quite evident as people are fearful of potential scammers and fines they may incur. This was made viral from a video published in 2011 of a young girl, now known as Little Yue, who was hit by a van and left on the floor, with passerbys doing nothing at all to help her for an entire 7 minutes. While many viewers were quick to judge the native Chinese for the lack of empathy, the issue goes much deeper than that. While not super common, there have been several cases of scammers called pengsi, of those who fake injury for compensation, which have had considerable negative impacts on trust and moral obligation. So as we become more engrossed into the digital world, this pattern of behavior may have only gotten worse. Now everything exists to be captured and uploaded online. We are all seeking for some viral moment. Instead of going out to help others, we are attempting to film it for the rest of the world to see. Our phones makes us feel like social media activists helping highlight the problem, but instead of actually intervening, we're just standing there, standing by and watching it all happen in front of us. We've all seen countless videos of a horrific incident being filmed right in front of us, and yet none of the people that are there are doing anything and instead just filming it. In New Jersey in 2014, people sat by as a woman was punched and kicked by a coworker. In Philadelphia in 2016, we watched as a man beat and punched a woman in the streets, all the while observers simply filmed the incident. Then there's even the case of the fire in Pincourt, Canada, where people just watched as a house burned down and yet nobody chose to call a fire station. In a way, it's not that we don't want to help, but perhaps the belief that filming in itself is a type of assistance, as we assume that filming the event may help in getting it seen. Yet the problem with this mentality is that the very action of videotaping what we see but not intervening at all is still a type of inaction. At the end of the day, if we aren't using the video for any real good to solve the problem, then what's it all for? It's definitely unsettling that we now live in a world where, unlike the case of Kitty Genovese, we are now going one step further beyond just doing nothing at all, instead doing something other than helping. The world is only getting meaner, tougher, and stranger to live in, and the desire to film everything will only continue to grow. While expressing our online frustrations by writing a passive comment or filming an event in that moment may seem useful, what we should learn to do is to lead by example and try to take action in a world where everything is seemingly lost with inaction. So if you like what you saw in this video and want to know more, make sure to subscribe to this channel, and please, I would appreciate if you gave this video a like. It will help spread it to more people, and let us continue to help you mine the golden mind.